today we have more rogue and it looks like desperate tactics. Just a few more lines to come right up. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn on your Friday. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment. And as always, I just want to say a warm hello to the loyal patrons, the subscribers, as well as the followers over on Periscope on your Friday. Thank you guys so much. And for those of you that are new to the show or that are not quite sure if you're coming in, thank you so much for considering coming in, because around here, you do have choices. So with that said, we're going to get into a couple of things today. Some things that I've wanted to get into specifically with a little bit of it. It's going to be a little bit of a, just making some commentary on some historical parallels, that I see, that I have been seeing, and they just keep coming into the focus. It's very clear, where I'm drawing, where I think I'm drawing historically upon for these assertions and for some of my hypothesis, if you will. But thank you guys so much for coming in. And I'll go ahead and give you a tip, the ticker on what we are having a look at this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are. We are going to look at just a little bit on we're going to look at a bit of a liner that comes out of the National Pulse. And it's a bit of a plan. It's more politics, of course, coming out of the Democrats and what they want and how much is at stake. It speaks to how much is at stake, I guess, on the January 5th with the Senate race coming down the pike, as well as we're going to look at a warning from the cardinal, from a top-ranking Catholic cardinal, on the auspices, as we've been speaking about here on this channel, in terms of the CV19 and just the overall agenda of that. And then we're going to round out with just a little bit from our WE forum, and we'll give you a little bit of insight on the standards of inoculation around the world, mocktail inoculations, and even give you a heads up on what nation state head has recently tested positive. So as per usual, I thank you guys so much for taking the time to come in. So just before we get into that, I'm going to give a word of thanks to our sponsors. Thanks so much for tuning in. This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, entertainment, history, and much, much more, there's something for everyone. So please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Joseph Francis Burton, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back to the news right after this. And once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in on your Friday, and a warm hello to Kathy Latour. Hi, Kathy. How are you? Thanks so much for coming in, and thanks so much for using your energy and your time to come in. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your thoughtfulness and for coming in and tuning in. So I'm going to bring us back. I'm going to bring us in, and we're going to start out with what I find. This is a little bit of my opening statement here, but we're going to start with the National Pulse, And we're also going to cross-reference a few points from 1930s Nazi Germany, as well as a little bit of commentary on something that's been referred to as the Commission, Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And that's actually going to kind of be a summation, I guess, kind of give us a summation of what I'm speaking about and some of the other parallels that we've talked about before. We've had many perspectives, historical perspectives on what's going on, but I just keep seeing different ones, and I just have to call them out when I recognize them. But I'm going to take you there, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. So we're going to start with, of course, the Dems. This is coming out of a new source. This is new to me. This is coming from the nationalpulse.com. And this is entitled Dems Demand House Ban of Pro-Trump Congressman Use of Force to Disenfranchise Over 92 Million Americans in Hitler-Style Enabling Act. All right, so this was actually just written a couple of days ago. Okay, according to this, a New Jersey congressman, Bill Pascrell, and the Week magazine writer Ryan Cooper have urged Democratic Party leadership to ostracize Republicans who supported President Trump's legal claims, in a move not dissimilar to Nazi Führer Adolf Hitler's Enabling Act, which prescribed opposition political parties. Okay, according to this, the suggestion perhaps underscores the importance of Republicans holding the Senate on January 5th, when Georgians are set to vote in their runoff, which will decide the composition of the upper chamber. Okay, Pascrell, 83, tweeted, quote, "The text of the 14th Amendment expressly forbids members of Congress from engaging in rebellion against the United States. Trying to overturn a democratic election and install a dictator seems a pretty clear example of that," end quote. The move would immediately disenfranchise over 92 million Americans, including non-Republican voters in Republican voting districts, per 2015 data, according to calculations by the National Pulse. Okay, so just for kicks and giggles, this is actually the tweet, and this is Pascrell. Bill Pascrell Jr., and this is his actual tweet, and this is what he is proposing. We might take a look at that on some level, but Pascrell's demand that 92 million members of the public are disenfranchised because their representatives supported constitutional legal remedies against potential election fraud was echoed by Ryan Cooper, a chemist who writes about politics for The Week magazine. The Week is owned by Dennis Publishing, which in turn is owned by a London-based private equity firm. Cooper wrote in his December 12th article, "It's worth thinking about what a party seriously committed to preserving democracy would do when faced with a seditious opposition party, namely cut them out of power and force them to behave. Democrats could declare all traitors ineligible to serve in national office, convene a patriot Congress composed solely of people who have not committed insurrection against the American government, and use that power to re-entrench democracy." Cooper italicized the word, quote, "force," end quote, in his article, demanding political suppression of a party he suggests is guilty of, quote, "insurrection," end quote, for taking election results to court. In Cooper's America, Democratic Party victories may not be challenged legally or otherwise. Okay, so what you can see is Ryan Cooper's tweet. If you want to delve into that, I'll drop this link for you. But this is here it is. We've got projection. It's projection, but it's not unprecedented. It's, this is, these things are rooted in history, and that's a part of my assertion for today. So, in case it was unclear what kind of violent force he was discussing, Cooper states in conclusion, this country was founded by people who thought it was worth putting their lives haphazard to throw off tyrannical rule. Perhaps some of that spirit can once again be found, end quote. When conservatives harken back to the nation's founding, the media and left calls them extremist. There has thus far been no deplatforming of Cooper for his demands for violent coercion of Trump voters. Sorry, I'm a bit of a. I don't like to use the term Trump supporters. I think it's overdone for one, but it's it's overdone, and I think it's a bit much. Kathy Latour, I'm going to read your comments, and they are you're most generous. I thank you for being here and taking the time to come in. Okay, Kathy says, no, your handwriting is just fine. Don't worry about that. I thank you so much for coming in. Kathy says, you're so smart, really, truly new. Well, I really appreciate you for coming in. Thank you so much. So what I want to do with that piece, and this is this is kind of an opening, kind of a cross or a hybrid, a bit of an opening statement. All of the rhetoric that, not all of it, I'm saying from where I'm sitting, a lot of this rhetoric very much resembles readings on the SS. In fact, Bill O'Reilly wrote "Killing the SS," which I think is a great book. I think Bill O'Reilly is a bit of a history buff. I don't know if that's a bit far to go on that, but he wrote "Killing the SS," and the book itself is it's very much, there's so many parallels to what's going on here. I mean, yes, it's the parallels here they're just piling on. Like, you've got this, it's like, okay, so now we're in the tone, or the framework is hunting down war criminals, or it's almost like the left and the globalists and all these people, they're trying to figure out how they're going to somehow thwart the post Trump's America First agenda. It seems that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to find a way to rid the country of Trump, or any of his administrators, or anybody that's had any association with him. And that's, to me, very much it's rhetoric it's eerily resembling, to me, Germany 1930s. I mean, what's next? The Nuremberg trials. And that also kind of segues me into another, where you have this whole Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I'm telling you, if projection had a $sign on it, I mean, you'd be rich, right? I mean, you'd be rich. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, especially Kathy Latour says, oh yeah, he's a history buff. For sure, he's a history buff. He's a teacher. Yes. So, I do listen to Bill O'Reilly, but I also, I read his books. So I'm guilty of that. And some people say, have their opinions. Of course, I've had my disagreements with some things, of course, that Bill O'Reilly, some of his positions, but I don't think historically, I think he's fair, and I think he's accurate with his writings. So what I want to continue on with is that, yes, this is, there's so much projection here, but at the same time, where do they think they're going to ultimately destroy, no matter how this thing turns out, post January 5th, post January 2021? What are they thinking they're going to do? This is the US government. What do they think they're going to do? What are they actually trying to achieve? There seems to be the goal to that they're trying to do something there. If they can apprehend Trump and the Trump administration and everybody and the tentacles, you know, that they're going to try to do it. I just have no. It's just there's a lot going on here, so much going on, and it's thick. It's thick. It's in the writings of the media. It's everywhere. So I don't think we're going to be able to get around that. Thank you guys so much for coming in. And for those of you that are not sure you're coming in, I appreciate you for considering coming into Black Spring with Autumn. And I have JT. He says, look at the Soviet tribunals between 1917 and 1953. They are creating a denouncement culture. Hello. The live effect. Thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate you guys for feeding that AI by either hitting the like or the unlike button, or daring to share, whatever you want to do around here. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, the live effect. I really appreciate it. I'll have to look you up around here. I'm not sure if you're on YouTube, but I really appreciate the support. Thank you so much. So just really quickly, I'm just even looking, I can just look to an excerpt from Killing the SS, and it's just the same kinds of rhetoric, that they're recreating these things, the rhetoric. They're recreating history. But it's them. It's them. It's more resembling of what they are doing and I've been saying that for, I think, at least a year or two. But certainly this does feel like we are dealing with some type of, that they are preparing some type of post-Trump destruction, or they're trying to figure out how the people post-Trump are going to go underground, or they're going to be forced underground, or I mean, I'm honestly, it's a lot. It's a lot, but I'm just thinking these are just some things that I'm noticing, not just from the media, but it's coming directly out of the policymakers, or the so-called servants. Thank you so much for tuning in. So we're going to keep going here. But yeah, so you got January 5th coming up, January 6th, and of course January 2021. It just seems like this is just ongoing. So I just wanted to point those things out for a while. So what we're also going to do is we're going to look at one article that talks about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And that's just an article. I don't think there's actually anything has actually been drafted on the measure, but it's so thick. It's really thick. The propaganda, what they've been able to get people to buy into. It's pretty amazing. And so I'm going to share just a little bit of that with you before we go on to the next liner. So I thank you guys so much for tuning in. So let's run right over here. All right. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of things here. Just give you a little bit of landscape information on this. So, of course, you've had all people from all walks of media, all walks of, dare I say, journalists, to comment on this. So this comes from thenation.com. This was actually written back in October. But according to this, we're going to need a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to recover from Trump. History alone cannot hold Trump and his enablers accountable for the crimes they have committed. And this is written by Ellie Mistall. So we're not going to do this entire article. I'm just going to give you a little bit of the context here. And actually, it's going to reveal some hypocrisy, I think, at the same time. So let's go ahead and give you the context here. So according to this, in January 2009, days before his inauguration as the 44th president of the United States, President-elect Barack Obama sat down for an interview with ABC's George Stephanopoulos. Obama was asked directly if his administration would appoint a special prosecutor to investigate George W. Bush administration officials who participated in illegal detentions and torture. Obama said, quote, "I don't believe that anybody is above the law. On the other hand, I have a belief that we need to look forward as opposed to looking backwards," end quote. Obama was wrong at the time. Many people told him so, refusing to prosecute Bush administration officials who engaged in human rights violations may have been smart, moderate politics for a deeply divided nation, but allowing torturers and enablers to blend seamlessly back in with decent society was a moral failure. The depth of that failure has only grown over time. Many of the legal apparatchiks who made torture possible still wield power today. Take, for instance, Gina Haspel, the current director of the CIA, is the former head of, quote, black site, end quote, when torture went down. The fact that she's allowed to hold power today is an indictment of our country and our commitment to human rights. All right, so we're going on here. Moreover, failing to hold accountable those who abuse their power signals to future abusers they will all be forgiven. It tells people in power they can commit atrocities while they hold office because nobody will be coming for them when they're on the other side. It is important to distinguish crimes against humanity from mere political policy differences, but acting like no distinction can be made is a mistake. It's a mistake that Obama's Vice President Joe Biden cannot be allowed to repeat. Unfortunately, even as the current election still rages with no conclusion expected for weeks, if not longer, some elites are already circling the wagons around the morally bankrupt concept of amnesty for President Trump and his administration. Over the weekend, Harvard professor Jill Lepore published a piece in the Washington Post saying that Trump should not be investigated for crimes should he lose power, but rather, quote, history, end quote, should be his judge. The widely shared article argued against a post-World War II style, quote, Truth and Reconciliation Commission, end quote, as has proposed by Senator Elizabeth Warren and others to investigate wrongdoing by the Trump administration. The core of Lepore's argument is that functioning democracies have other means of holding the likes of Trump and his enablers to account. Lepore writes, quote, democracies have all sorts of other institutions that do that. Investigative journalism, a functioning judiciary, legislative deliberation and action, and dissent itself. In the United States today, those institutions need fortifying, not bypassing, end quote. The problem is that every single one of the institutions she lists has in some way failed during the Trump administration. Journalists have failed to report on Trump accurately during his first campaign, his administration, and now his reelection run. The judiciary does not function as a reliable check, as both the state and federal systems have been stacked with Trump-aligned justices. Quote, legislative deliberation, end quote, is a joke of a concept in a country that can't even pass a CV-19 relief bill. And, quote, dissent itself, end quote, has been manhandled and brutalized under this administration, with Attorney General Bill Barr and acting Homeland Security Chad Wolf deploying stormtroopers into the streets to tear gas and pepper spray citizens exercising their right to protest. Trump has largely defeated these institutions in order to gain and maintain power. There is no rational reason to think they'll rebound to hold him accountable when he's out of office, assuming he is even willing to transfer power peacefully. We need a form of truth and reconciliation commission precisely because our normal institutions have failed. We need to understand how that failure happened, who is responsible, and who should face justice. When a plane falls out of the sky, we don't just shrug our shoulders and say, quote, gravity has consequences, end quote. We send in a team of experts to pick through the wreckage, figure out exactly what went wrong, hold people accountable, and make recommendations for future safety. We send in experts after disasters, not just for vengeance, but to make people feel safe again. The, quote, reconciliation, end quote, part of the commission is just as important as, quote, the truth, end quote, part. We still have to have a society with these Trump people And they can't happen until we understand what they've done and feel measures have been taken to protect us from them again. Toward this end, perhaps the main benefit of some kind of commission on accountability is that it would allow the American public to reckon with the abuses and violations committed not just by Trump, but also by his many enablers. Barr must be brought to justice for turning tear gas on peaceful protesters so that Trump could take a photograph with a Bible. Former Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen must be held accountable for her role in kidnapping children, sending them to concentration camps, and lying to courts about what she was doing. And every single person who decided to let people die from CV-19 instead of helping those who live in, quote, blue, end quote, states, including presidential son-in-law Jared Kushner, must be investigated and held to some manner of justice for the lives they've snuffed out. So this is the rhetoric that you're dealing with. So here again, this is the same type of, it's priming, I think it's pre-programming those who watch mainstream for what they're projecting a post-Trump administration would do, or what they're trying to bring them to justice for. And I see that no differently from the post-World War II and even the Bill O'Reilly's rendition on that, and even Nuremberg trials. Like it's just so thick, and it'll reach a lot of people. I think it absolutely will. Hello, Gary Gage. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you so much for coming in. You're listening from Oklahoma. I appreciate it. Thank you. And Kathy Latour says, so it's sad we cannot say what we want. Yeah, that's becoming, it's becoming so yesterday, Kathy Latour. I think that was something that I mentioned on the last stream. And you don't want to settle into, the more you submit, I think if you start submitting to it, it becomes more real, like in the mind. You settle into the idea that it's gone, that that liberty is gone. And I don't know, I'm trying not to. It's hard. It's tough. But the thing about it is, what is anybody doing anything about it? I mean, and I'm not saying that's a rhetorical question. And that's a question that I think is more appropriate for the leaders. It's a reflection of this whole left-right paradigm that I don't think anyone is actually upholding their oath of office. And they haven't been. I think they've had their tentacles all over the place. And, I think they're showing who they are and who they have been. And I'm not surprised. Is it any less sad? No, but I'm not surprised. And JT says, always accuse your victim or adversary of what yourself are doing. Yes, is it Saul Alinsky? I mean, it's so thick, but I just don't know. I mean, I'm not in those positions, but I consider, our Congress is greatly failed, and it's not new. It's not new. It's not a new thing. But yeah, so that's the rhetoric behind the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions. But I don't know where who's serving on that commission. Where are they getting these people from? Who knows? And I would imagine it's going to look more like a sustainability person, an economics person, a good governance person. It looks like all of those little components that are shaping this whole, what people don't want to say, NWO or Great Reset or a 4IR. It's all, we look to the we form regularly. So the thing about it is, when you use their words against them, that's when they are most They can be most irate or most irritated is when you use their own words against them. And those are the Klaus Schwabs and the, what do you want to say, the John Kerrys, the Bill Gates, all of these personalities. I mean, these are their words. These are their websites. I mean, it's a public website, and they invite you to come there. So, we oblige, we go on, and we indulge. So, don't shoot the messenger, but they will censor me. They will try to censor me. But what we're going to do is we're going to give just a brief word of thanks to our sponsors, and I will be right back in just a moment. Thanks so much for tuning in. This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, entertainment, history, and much, much more, there's something for everyone. So please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Joseph Francis Burton, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back to the news right after this. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning back in. For if those of you that are just now tuning into the show, thank you so much for tuning in. We were having a look at a bit of a projected commission on referring to Truth and Reconciliation commissioning post the Trump administration. So we are... but I will say this, and here I am. I'm going to paraphrase this, that Trump himself, or at least the media, some of the rhetoric around him says that he is indeed a wartime president. And I agree with that on many levels. So I guess it just kind of makes sense, what's coming out of the historical context here. And so, but who's the war against? Who the enemy is? What we'd be trying to make that more apparent, more clear. We'd be trying to offer some assertion on where the enemy actually is. Who's the actual enemy, and where's the threat, and where's the imminence in the threat? That's what we would be doing. What we'd be speaking to here. So. I'm going to round this one out in just a bit, because this is going to kind of go into the Georgia Senate races. So we're going to we'll just round this one out here. I think we're very close to the end. Actually, we're so close to the end, we'll just finish this one out. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So from where we stopped, all of these moral and ethical failures need to be investigated. And that's before we get into the actual statutory crimes potentially committed by Trump, his administration, his enablers, and his family. Trump and likely his daughter Ivanka appear to be tax cheats. Senators Richard Burr and Kelly Loeffler appear to have traded on inside information to avoid stock market losses during the pandemic. Rudy Giuliani is in so deep with foreign operatives who are trying to manipulate the election that he comes close to admitting to treason every time he butt dials Olivia Nuzzi. And let's not forget, 7 former Trump officials or advisors have been criminally charged during the last 4 years. Does anyone reasonably think that we've caught all of the actual criminals in this administration? History will remember Trump, but it will forget about Steve Bannon, Rod Rosenstein, and Stephen Miller. Lepore claims to be arguing that our democracy is strong enough to ignore criminal activity by the Trump administration, but what she's really saying is that our democracy is too weak to seek equal justice for all. Lepore would let all of these additional criminals off the hook in the name of comedy with the Republicans who voted for their boss. This way of thinking incentivizes future Republican assaults on the rule of law by treating the Republican Party as too big to fail. Her justification for this manifest injustice is this quote, but the Trump administration is not Nazi Germany, nor is it a nation defeated in war, end quote. Tell that to somebody who has lost a loved one from CV-19. Tell that to some of those 200,000 people still expected to die from this disease between now and the first of the year. Go lean over their hospital beds as they gasp for oxygen and tell them, quote, future historians will judge the people who decided you could die because Trump won't win Illinois, end quote. Tell that to a woman who has been raped by agents of the American government in one of their immigrant concentration camps. Tell that to a woman who's had her uterus removed in a procedure she didn't understand was happening after being denied counsel or even a translator. Lepore uses a facile Nazi analogy, the way my parents told me to eat my vegetables because other kids were starving. But I doubt she made that argument to the face of a person who has been on the receiving end of a Miller ethnic cleansing ideations. Cruelty is not an acceptable policy outcome from the marketplace of ideas. Treating the Trump administration as a group of good faith public servants who merely have political disagreement with other opposition is one of the reasons we have arrived in this hellscape in the first place. The Bush administration tortured people and waged war against foreign nations based on false pretenses. Nothing was done to hold them accountable when they left office. Without fear of retribution, the Trump administration has come along and waged war against our own nation on the theory that being cruel to brown people and people living in blue states is just a, quote, political choice. If we don't hold the Trump administration accountable, what will the next Republican administration do? Who will be the next group of people Republicans decide it's okay to kill or let die in the name of electoral politics? Maybe it'll be the historians. Lepore should check out what the Republicans are trying to do in the 1619 Project before she naively suggests that people will even be allowed to read histories should Republican administrations get their way. We must hold the perpetrators of Trumpism accountable. Otherwise, we won't ever be able to move forward. That's what Obama missed. I hope Biden, should we be so lucky, doesn't make the same mistake. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So there was your article that you had coming out of the nation.com. So that was pretty thick, right? Pretty thick with some rhetoric, some projection, doing their best. They're appealing to people and just absolutely conflating governments and ideology just all over the place. But to the people that are not paying attention, everything's fine. Orange man bad. So that's rounding out a bit of the commentary and my point on the actual the strategy and the tactics that they're using around this January 5th runoffs in Georgia. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to something else. Thank you guys so much for coming in. So what we're going to do now, we're going to switch gears just a little bit. And we're going to have a look at a warning from a top-ranked Catholic cardinal who talks about the CV and, of course, some of the agenda on that. And then we will actually round out with some things coming out of directly from the WE Forum. So thank you guys so much for tuning in on your Friday. John H. Roberts, thank you so much for tuning in. He says, does anyone really read in full these? I think not. I think not. It's very sad, but and that's why I say on this channel, no matter what I present on this channel, I still say, we, the people, or just, humanity in general, we are not absolved of our own obligation to self-educate. We're not. And that's and people just they want to be told. They even want to be told what's not. They don't want to be told what's being read to them or what they're writing. They want to be told what they're seeing now. So it's like I use the phrase. I'll preface things sometimes of what we're seeing is that's some people that's the law. That's pretty much it. They want to believe what you're told, no matter what you're seeing, even though you say this is a peaceful going on in the background. Don't never mind that burning building going on in the background. They literally what you're seeing is peace, even though it's a burning building going down. They accept that, and where do they wind up? I'm not surprised. So we're going to go on to kind of getting into some. We had the Pope weighing in the other day, which the Pope weighs in all the time, but we have another weigh in today that I'm going to share with you. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. As we had a warning earlier, this year, and I'm not sure, warnings fall on deaf ears. I guess that's what happens, right? I guess that's what's happening. Can't be sure, but it's definitely happening. And it actually, let's see, this one's actually coming out of Zero Hedge, and this is the top-ranking Catholic cardinal says the CV-19 is used to advance godless and murderous agenda, usher in the GR, and around here that is the Great Reset, which that's being donned a conspiracy along with the NWO and probably everything else. We just same stuff, different day, same theme, just changed the name. These themes are all related. So I'm going to share this one with you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And hi, how are you? Joseph Francis Burton. Thank you so much for coming in and all you do to support the channel. He says, well, oh, he's responding to John Roberts. Thanks so much, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and share the next, share this little article here. All right. So this is coming out of your Zero Hedge, and it's given the pen name by Tyler Durden. In early November, an Italian Archbishop and Pope Francis' foe, Carlo Mario Viggiano, launched an attack against those behind the pandemic lockdowns across the globe, warning President Trump in a letter of the coming GR, that is the Great Reset, whose architects are, quote, a global elite that wants to subdue all of humanity, imposing coercive measures with which to drastically limit individual freedoms and those of entire populations. Okay, so according to this from Archbishop Viggiano, the purpose of the Great Reset is the imposition of a health dictatorship aiming at the imposition of liberticidal measures hidden behind tempting promises of ensuring a universal income and canceling individual debt. End quote. The Viggiano's letter continues. Now, roughly 6 weeks later, one of the most powerful Catholics of the United States, Cardinal Raymond Burke, has kicked it up a notch, slamming, quote, secular forces who want to make us slaves to their godless and murderous agenda. So, I mean, I'm going to play a little bit of this for you. I think this has a little bit of length to it, but I'll just play it anyway. And this is coming from Cardinal Raymond has warned of the danger of the certain forces who are using the cover of the CV-19 to promote fear, attack freedom and the family. So, according to this, the Great Reset is the new normal. So I'm going to play just a little bit of this, and just a little bit of this. Let's see.
Then there is the mysterious Wuhan virus, about whose nature and prevention the mass media daily give us conflicting information. What is clear, however, is that it has been used by certain forces inimical to families and to the freedom of nations, to advance their evil agenda. These forces tell us that we are now the subjects of the so-called Great Reset, the new normal, which is dictated to us by their manipulation of citizens and nations through ignorance and fear.
Okay, so there you had just a little bit of, as they say, directly from the horse's mouth there. So we'll go ahead and finish that one up. And then I'll give you an update on who actually who's tested positive recently. All right. So Burke also slams the U.S. reliance on China, saying, quote, to attain economic gains, we as a nation have permitted ourselves to become dependent upon the Chinese Communist Party, an ideology totally opposed to the Christian foundations upon which families in our nation remain safe and prosper, end quote. Burke, who sits on the Church's Supreme Tribunal of the Apostolic Signatura, has the highest judicial authority in the Catholic Church, then turned his attention to the pandemic, saying, quote, then there is the mysterious Wuhan virus, about whose nature and prevention the mass media daily gives us the conflicting information. So that's what you just heard on that one. And of course, I can put that link in the stream for you guys if you want to see that, or if you want to see it at length. I think there's probably the full version of that. I will provide that for you. I think that version is actually on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on this segment. So with that said, it kind of segues us kind of nicely into the last segment of our show today. And it's going to come from the We Forum. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for helping feed the AI today. Help the AI help us stay in the fight around here. Thank you so much for that. So we're going to go over to the We Forum. Hello, Rachel. Thank you so much. There's also a cardinal who wrote to Trump and warned him about everything. Absolutely, yes. And we did do that one earlier. I think that wasn't very long ago. It was during the fall, I believe, that one came out. So I don't know. He doesn't exactly do responses. So yikes. Just so many things going on. So many, it's really hard to tell. Thank you so much, Rachel, for coming in. I appreciate you guys. If you guys could hit the like button just to keep going around here. Appreciate it. All right. So according to this, and this is our final installment on today. All right. So according to this is entitled The CV-19, What You Need to Know About the Corona Pandemic on 18th of December. That's December 18th, that is. All right. So that's actually what you're seeing is you're seeing someone with the jab here, mocktail. A little bit of a smile even. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep going here. All right, so this daily roundup brings you a selection of the latest news and updates on the CV-19 pandemic, as well as tips and tools to help you stay informed and protected. Top stories: the French PM Macron test positive. The EU states to start CV vaccinations from December 27th. Moderna vaccine set for U.S. approval. So this is giving you a global and a domestic status update here. So for one, how the CV-19 is affecting the globe. Confirmed cases of the CV-19 has now passed 75 million globally, according to the Johns Hopkins CV Resource Center. The number of confirmed deaths stands at more than 1.66 million. 2/3 of England will be under the country's toughest tier 3. The CV-19 measures from Saturday to tackle a rising number of infections. Northern Ireland to set to enter 6-week CV-19 lockdown on December 26 to contain a surge in the CV-19 cases. A new study from Singapore has shown that pregnant women don't get sicker than the wider population. It also found that babies born to infected mothers have antibodies against the virus. A second wave of infections is hitting West and Central Africa, with experts are warning it could be worse than the first as cooler weather descends on the region. Johnson & Johnson has enrolled 45,000 people into the first late-stage trial of its CV-19 single-dose mocktail candidate. J&J plans to submit the emergency use authorization application to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration in February if the data from the study is safe and effective. South Korea has reported 1,062 new CV cases, its second highest ever daily tally. Early data from the phase 1 and 2 trials of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine mocktail found it provoked a good immune response when a 2 full dose regime is used. Got to get that double dose, right? The United States Food and Drug Administration is set to grant emergency approval to the Moderna CV-19 mocktail. So they're literally rolling out. We get Pfizer, Moderna, BioNTech, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca. So you're seeing the ones they're rolling out. I think we did a report not too long ago on, I think the Oxford AstraZeneca is the most cost efficient one that's being, chosen for some of the lesser developed countries, if you will. So, and I'm sure this is developing stories, but we'll just keep bringing them out. But number 2, as French President Emmanuel Macron tests positive for the CV-19. The French President Emmanuel Macron tested positive for the CV-19 on Thursday and has gone into quarantine. He joins a list of world leaders who've contracted the virus, which includes the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, US President Donald Trump, and Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. Macron will cancel all upcoming trips, and the news has prompted track and trace efforts after recent meetings with leaders from across the EU. Number 3, the EU states to start the CV mocktails. The European Union states it will start the vaccinations against the CV-19 from 27th of December, and the EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen has confirmed the bloc is home to some 450 million people. The EU member states have been waiting for the European Medicines Agency, EMA, to approve the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. The EMA is expected to make an announcement on the 21st of December. The EMA has also said it was speeding up efforts to improve the Moderna mocktail. It will bring forward a review to January 6th from January 6th to the 12th of January. So, this thing is, it's making its way around the world. Hello, I have the definition of anarchy here. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it on your Friday. Thank you guys so much for coming in. And Mano Munoz, did you see the nurse that passed out after? No, I did not see that. Mano Munoz, I didn't see that. And hello to Touchdown Sean. This is what is happening in this country. It reminds me of the movie World War Z. Okay, bring me up to date on that. Touchdown Sean sometime. All right, and Rachel says they are telling Canadians masks and social distancing are still required even after. Yes, that is very much. I've heard that before as well. In fact, I have a clip of that for you. That was actually something that was mentioned specifically. Well, it was mentioned during the New York rolling out the mocktail on earlier, and then it's also being echoed by some of these other professionals that even after you get the second dose, you're not going to be jet setting, or you're not going to be your liberty is not going to be restored. Hello, R. Jones. R. Jones says, Stephen D. Kelly, a scientist, not biological, who has a radio show 8 years plus years, last night did a show with lots of research and published reports correlating our heavy metal exposure and all CV symptoms. Thanks so much for that. Stephen D. Kelly, huh? Thank you for sharing that, R. Jones. I appreciate it. And I thank you guys so much for coming in. And for those of you that are helping out with the Chanalytics. Okay, Mano Munoz says, if you don't take the mocktail in Canada, they're going to put your head in a guillotine. Yikes. Yikes. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean that in the most informative way possible. All right, so let me just give another word to our sponsors, and I'll be right back to round us out on your Friday. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, entertainment, history, and much, much more, there's something for everyone. So please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Joseph Francis Burton, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back to the news right after this. All right, guys. I thank you so much for coming in on your Friday. You could be like tons of places, but you chose to stop into Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate it. And for those of you that have helped to feed and nourish the AI, I really appreciate that. And those of you that are sharing out the stream, I really appreciate that too. Thank you guys so much. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up this segment of Black Spring on your Friday, because this was a bit of a flash, but I just think it's more of the same. You know, there's a bit, shout out to the Lockhart perspective if you're anywhere within the sound of my voice, because she always says the calm, this is the calm before, I'm paraphrasing Lockhart perspective. This is the calm before the storm. And it really does feel like that. It feels, there seems to be some type of eerie calm or eerie, eeriness right now. And, somebody mentioned something not too long ago that they wanted to hear from, that they would like to hear from President Trump. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess we haven't heard from him in a while either. Either you hear from him, but it's via Twitter. So I don't know if you're going to get some other form of announcement there, but good luck with that. But, in the meantime, I guess you just have to keep your faith, and you have to do your parts individually, and not lose sight of either way. Either way, you can't you can't if you're a staunch political or a staunch conservative, whatever you are, you have to hold on to your faith. That's what you have to do. If you don't have that, then you have to look to your own preservation and your own sources there. So once again, I'm just going to give a warm shout out to everybody in the stream. Mano Munoz says that it's part of the Noahide laws. So I'm going to give a shout out to everybody in the stream, and thank you guys so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. Rachel, thank you so much for coming in. And Rachel says the guillotines are everywhere. They say it's more humane than anything else. Yikes. Okay. I did that one. Shout out to Touchdown Sean R. Jones. The Definition of Anarchy. Thank you so much for coming in and all that you do to support the channel. And you guys that you patrons or whatnot, you feel free to drop your link I'm just giving you the latitude to do that. That's not something you need to ask me to do here. And let's see, JT, thank you so much for coming in. John H. Roberts Jr., thank you so much for coming in. Joseph Francis Burton, thank you so much for coming in and all that you do to support the channel. Kathy Latour, thank you. The Live Effect. Let's see. Am I missing anybody here? Looks like I've gotten to the top. Gary Gage, thank you so much for coming in. So if you're new to the channel, I appreciate it. And thanks so much for taking care with the Channelytics once again. And you guys have a great rest of your Friday and a great start to the weekend. All right, guys.